Welcome into Automotive Insiders. I'm your host, Jason Stein. Great to have you back listening again today. In this episode, we're taking a focused look at a quiet but profound shift underway in North American manufacturing, one that every supplier feels, whether on the plant floor, in engineering, or in the C-suite. Production volumes across North America have remained relatively steady. We're not in a collapse cycle. We're not in a boom cycle. Output has normalized, and yet employment continues to decline. That tells us something important. It isn't cyclical, it's structural. And the question isn't whether jobs are disappearing. The question is how technology is reshaping the nature of work inside automotive manufacturing, and what that means for suppliers who must stay competitive while building a resilient, engaged workforce. Joining us today is Jonathan Lee, Vice President of Solutions at Redzone from QAD, someone who has spent over 25 years inside automotive, witnessing firsthand the waves that have reshaped this industry. The move from hard automation to smart robotics, the digitization of the plant floor, and the rise of global collaboration. Today, we'll explore what has truly transformed over the past quarter century, from paper-based work instructions to real-time dashboards and predictive maintenance, and what hasn't changed at all. We'll examine how technology can elevate rather than replace the workforce, from AI-assisted inspection and digital twins to mobile plant communication tools, micro-credentialing, AR, VR training, and real-time collaboration platforms. For suppliers navigating this transition, the imperative is clear. Implement technology that reduces cognitive load, empowers frontline teams, and supports career progression, not systems that add friction or simply monitor output. The next chapter of automotive manufacturing won't be defined by fewer workers. It'll be defined by more capable ones. Jonathan Lee joins us to break it all down next. Well, it's great to have you on the program, Jonathan. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. When I heard we were going to do this, obviously really excited. Something I'm very passionate about, and I think I've shared a little bit with you about my background. So just for the audience, prior to working at Redzone, so I've been with Redzone approximately 8 years, and worked through a variety of roles. I'm currently the vice president of our solutions team, but what got me excited about this conversation is, historically, we were primarily a company that had worked in food and beverage, and approximately, 3-4 years ago, we started to kind of branch out into all these different markets. And of course, I shared with you, like, my background is, I came from a tier one automotive supplier, largest exhaust manifold supplier in the world for Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. And just I think part of what gets me so excited about what we do at Redzone, we talk a lot about being a champion for the frontline worker, as I was part of a Scanlon company. So Scanlon being, the operator knows their job best. The operator has value that they can bring. How do we bring those ideas out? How do we get people engaged? How do we utilize them to help solve all the different problems that we're experiencing across facilities? Not only, I've spent most of my time in Canada and the United States, but, we're seeing the same type of thing in the UK and across Europe. And through that journey, I was introduced to the Toyota production system partway through my career, and had a lean sensei from Japan, and a lot of the values or things that he kind of left with me have really shaped, my view of how important that engagement is, to be able to get people's ideas rather than just, hey, I'm some, monkey that comes in and pushes a button every day, and my mind doesn't matter. There's so much more to it than that. And I think joining Redzone, when I realized what they were bringing, it was just immediate fit.
And given that, give us a little bit of your perspective, I guess, on technology reshaping the nature of work, and maybe along the theme of technology enabling the workforce.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was just talking at a conference last week, and I never like to age myself too much. My hair does that a little itself, but when I started, in the automotive world. I think things were very different. I was joking with the guys about the SPC charts that we were working with for chromium and silicon content. They were actually plotted on a diagram, and that was absolutely acceptable. That was the norm, that if your line goes down, we look up at a clock and say, "Oh, I don't know, it's about 10 o'clock," and it went to 10:10, and I think that it was this. And my wife's a teacher, and she talks about, the expectations now of younger folks are very different than the expectations of the generation that I came in with. They grow up, with technology in their hands, essentially from, I guess I feel like an interesting point in my generation is I've grown up not knowing technology, and now I've had, technology in my hand the last 15 years. But now, you've got someone who you're trying to encourage to go into a space like automotive, which I'm proud to have been a part of, but parents see it as some sort of archaic industry in a lot of cases, where you're asking me to walk around with a clipboard and then go transfer something to an Excel spreadsheet, and then maybe I get information tomorrow or the next day. Whereas these people are used to having things at their fingertips, immediately.
Given that, and given the current generation of the workforce, I guess maybe walk us through productivity tools, collaboration tools, and some engagement tools, and how technology is empowering workers to maybe solve problems even faster.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, like, what I've seen when you think about solving problems faster. So I think you and I chatted about this earlier offline. So we're delivering, let's call it, 25% productivity improvement over the course of the Redzone deployment. And it's really, when you say productivity and collaboration, it's knowing exactly, you know, walking through my plant 15 years ago. Hey, how's your day going? It's going okay, or I think I'm doing all right, or today, it sucks, for example. It's knowing exactly at this minute in time, what's the delta versus where I would expect myself to be at performance wise. I'm also running that specific line or piece of equipment, and I've got a lot of ideas of, it's sounding different than it did yesterday. Let's use this tool very similar to, the iPhone that I have here and you probably have in your pocket, that I communicate if I'm going to the grocery store. What's the type of milk that I want to gather? I'm not gonna type something up or call on a radio. I'm going to just shoot an image of a device. So we've got a problem on a line. Let's take a quick video. Let's send that on to the maintenance team immediately. Let's get immediate feedback. So and then pulling ideas out where I can then say, hey, here's a solution that I believe is a solution to that problem. I'm now owning that, and I'm getting recognized. I'm getting recognized as well for when I'm making improvements. I'm part of the solution, which then, what's that do? I think we all know. I think I'm sure in your career, you want to be part of solving things. You want to be recognized. You want to be acknowledge that you're helping things get better. So what that does is drive increased engagement. And I think when you talked about the speed to value, or whatever term you want to use, it's just the ability to know right at that moment how I'm performing versus my target, and have ideas for that.
Let's talk a little bit about engaging that a new generation of workers, and kind of playing off what you just said, that today's workforce really expects an intuitive digital interface and different forms of mobility. There are some common mistakes that occur with implementation, and there's also continuous, what you've framed as micro learning. Can you explain some of that a little bit, and maybe how technology fits into that mix?
Yeah, so I think some of the common mistakes can be tools that are maybe implemented. Hey, here's a top-down solution, and something that we believe strongly in at Redzone is it's that bottom up, or something in my background was a servant leadership experience. How can I provide tools that are allowing you to be able to contribute to that solution? And then when you talk about, the changing workforce is, so in plants that we're now walking through, I'm through probably, let's call it one, two, three plants and on any given week. And you see historically, um, you know, I don't want to use the word archaic tools because they still are present value, but commonly these plants now within Redzone are utilizing an iPad or a Samsung device or some sort of tablet. They're doing, all their communication, all their checks line side, and something that resonated with me when I was first introduced to the Toyota production system is how important, how valuable it is to be able to have your eyes focused on the process. So you're not having to spend all your time up in an office and an engineer, you're at the point of value being created. And you're also able to, do all of these checks paperlessly immediately. So as they're completed, as quick as you and I are having this conversation, we're now seeing those results within that platform that's related to the performance I'm looking to improve real time. And I
How
think
can, yeah,
you
go ahead.
actually asked me, sorry to interrupt. You'd mentioned some of the micro learnings. I think that's something else that I've found interesting because I talked about, when I started, what did learning mean on the line, for example? What did it mean if I was having an issue with a piece of equipment? It often meant I'm going to go to some three-ring binder that's got, 200 different sheets in there that may be archaic. And now the way we're starting to build in the micro learning is, Jason, you're the line lead, you're the best operator on my line, and I'm a newer employee coming in, just like I would in my regular life. This past weekend, I was looking to figure out how to fix a washing machine. I don't pull the manual out. I'm going to YouTube. I'm going to say, hey, for example, I've got this model. We've got that definitely, built within to the app as well, so that I'm experiencing a problem. Maybe it's a robot weld issue, and Jason's already solved that problem 3 shifts before. He's created a video of what we did. I'm able to immediately access that. And I think that's some of the things that are just, I couldn't even imagine something like that 15 years ago, for example. It'd be unfathomable.
It's wild how fast things have changed, and the speed and velocity of all of it. How about manufacturers supporting workers, investing in technology that reduces what's been termed a cognitive load, I guess, and how you involve frontline workers in implementation decisions?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the most recent ones that you probably hear in your podcast all the time is, it feels like a buzzword, but it's AI. So how can AI start to take away some of those I guess I'd call, non-value added but necessary tasks, and that likely is going to resonate with some folks on that are listening in. But how can I start to provide, information at the point of use impactful to an operator without all the cumbersome, burden tasks of gather, half the battle I think sometimes is how do I even gather up and get access to this information? So utilize, within Redzone, we call it, champion AI. So it's essentially, it's providing me agentic AI information at, predicting problems that I'm possibly about to occur. Whereas I think not even that long ago, I mean, when I first joined Red Zone, it was like, I'm now solving problems in the moment, which was unbelievable. Even, you rewind 15 years where generally you were solving problems tomorrow that happened yesterday. So I've now got the ability to utilize AI to say, hey, by the way, I noticed you're running this part number on this line, and we've got it at these specific settings on the machine. By the way, the last 4 times you had that, these were the top issues that encountered. You might want to either change your settings, or by the way, there's these 3 videos that Jason created that you might want to just take a look at because we anticipate, there's a pretty good chance that these are problems you're going to encounter. And I think about sometimes people say, what would that mean in the real world? And I'm guessing, at Red Zone, obviously, the name probably resonates where we've probably got some football fans, but as a big Detroit Lions fan, that's where I'm sitting here doing that today. I think about Jared Goff coming off the field, the defense is on, and he's going over the plays with Dan Campbell on an iPad, saying, hey, by the way, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but when those guys line up in this formation, with a corner on the left side and we've got 3 wideouts and 1 tailback, there's a pretty good chance that they're blitzing. Like, it's giving you a head start on the information that you may encounter. And I think that's something, you see day to day that a lot of people can probably resonate with. Whereas there's so much a connotation of it's going to displace operators or it's going to take away their value. And I feel more it's the ability to create that superhero employee in all of us, if you will, because I think everyone wants to do a good job at work.
Excellent. Just some closing thoughts here. I know you've said the next wave is about elevating, not replacing the workforce. So, final question: what single workforce enabling technology should suppliers prioritize, say, over the next 3 years?
Well, I mean, I'm probably I'm going to say I'm biased on the side, but I think it's the ones where we just talked about where it's like how can I make this person's job easier so that they can be successful, they can be recognized for doing a good job, and then that flywheel effect, you create increased productivity with all the reasons we talked about, empowering the people. We're utilizing, AI tools to help make decisions faster and in the future rather than in the past, and then recognizing the people for that value. And I think that's ultimately, what gets me excited about going into the plants every single day or week.
Wonderful. What a pleasure to be with you, Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Jason.
Thanks again for listening to Automotive Insiders, and thanks to my guest, Jonathan Lee, Vice President of Solutions at Redzone from QAD. I'm your host, Jason Stein. Great to have you back listening this week. Come back to us on this platform for more episodes and a library of episodes on Automotive Insiders. And join us again next time for another episode.